Hi folks, it's Darren Ray Fonso, and I want to talk to you today about workers' comp in the state of Washington and across the United States today. Particularly, I want to talk about Washington State, and the topic today is going to be private equity hedge funds profiting off of the misery of injured workers. Yes, that's right, folks. We have private equity hedge funds that actually invest in the workers' comp industry and profit off of the harm done to injured workers. And the intentful knows this is the bad part, because what they're investing, these private equity hedge funds, and actually the big ones from out of state, are coming to our state and buying out private IME doctor mills that were started by one of our former medical directors. Yes, we have a former medical director from Washington State who started these IME companies here in Washington State back, like a decade ago here, and there were basically doctor no mills for the state and for the insurance companies, so that the insurance industry could go to the IME mills and buy themselves a no, so that they could harm the injured workers instead of helping them. Even though our own doctors are saying to help us, and yes, we have pictures, we were harmed on the job, yet we were sent to these IME mills. And the whole reason these IME mills were created by conservative businessmen out of Texas. They started this whole thing in a group called ALEC, and now it's not just conservative ALEC Republicans, it's also, we have liberal Democrats that have joined the ALEC party as well. Our state lawmakers have sold out. It doesn't matter which side you're on. And the whole reason they did this back in 2010, basically across the nation, state by state by state, they boilerplated these state laws that were worked against our state med tort laws to take our rights away in basically 2000. Through these med boards. But nonetheless, the IME mills, though, back in 2010, they wanted to create all these IME no mills, and they created this whole fear throughout the industry that injured workers were takers, and that everybody was abusing the system, and that all the doctors were lying. So they had to create all this fear that if they didn't address this fraud with all of these fraud units and these IME doctor mills and all of this whole industry, which basically is the cost containment industrial complex, is what it is. They went around and made everybody fear that all the injured workers were cheaters. What we're coming to find out is only 1% to 2% of the injured workers actually commit fraud. And so what's going on is we're helping about 80% of the people. About 80% of people get help with workers' comp, so it's still a good thing. We still need it. 80% of the people are being helped. So we don't want to do away with the program that is helping 80% of the people. Now the problem is the 20% that the work comp isn't helping and is intently not helping, so that this for-profit cost containment industrial complex can profit off the misery of the injured workers they intently tell no to, instead of helping that they know they should be helping, but they're sending through these mills to get intentional no's that take the injured worker then almost decades in some cases to get the wrongful no turned over, and then the wrongful no the doctor no never gets in trouble for intently trying to harm the injured workers or patients instead of helping them, because they say, well, there's not a doctor-patient relationship here. That needs to stop. And the whole deal, like I said, this was all started out of fear, and it was started by conservatives going across this country and getting Democrats to align with them, corporate Democrats to align with them, that we had to stack the deck against patients and against injured workers, and patients through med tort laws, and against injured workers and in the work comp system. So it's two ways they hit us with these bad laws since the year 2000. This has gone on for almost 20 years, more than that. It's been 30 years ALEC has been at it. Nonetheless, I wanted to try and keep this short and get to try and share how we have a former director of our state medical board, Washington State Medical Board, went out and started this IME doctor mill company about 10 years ago, and now it was just like 2 years ago he turned around and sold this company that had, you know, IME doctor mills throughout the state. He turned around and sold this company to an out-of-state private equity hedge fund company that bought it out. So we have these private equity hedge funds best invested in these doctor no companies to intently tell injured workers, no, I'm sorry, this is harming us, this is not helping us. And then when it turns out, and the statistics showed that only 1 to 2% of us were fraudulent, then this is wrong. We are intently harming these people and knowingly, so that the people we're intently harming 20% of the injured workers in America, and this isn't just here in Washington State, it's going on across the country, so that we can stop the 1 to 2% that may be fraudulent. So we're helping 80%, but yet we're harming 20%, so we can stop the 1 to 2% that may be fraudulent. We need to talk about this. And we can't intently harm 20% of them because we fear that we're at 1 to 2% might be being cheating. This needs to stop. And then you can't make us go through years and decades through doctors and IMEs and all kinds of other objective and subjective medical evidence. And it's just this is not a system that is working, and it was supposed to be a system that we were not supposed to litigate with one another if we were harmed or injured on the job. We were supposed to just be taken care of. And this is not, when we intently set up these laws, these state laws and med tort laws and work comp laws to hinder us from being able to utilize the state work comp system, it kind of makes it void for people. And that's why a lot of the conservatives say, well, let's just do away with that fucking program. Let's abolish it. Well, I'm sorry. No, just abolishing workers' comp is not the answer. And also, the other answer is not just handing a single payer, because they got that in Canada. They got both. And apparently their injured workers are still getting shafted. So just single payer is not the answer. What we need is to be able to police the doctors, and whether it's our regular care or workers' comp, and that is the problem, and that is not happening. These private equity hedge funds and the rich are able to utilize our doctors as tools in our care to harm rather than heal. And I'm sorry, when they do that, we need to be able to hold those doctors and those people to account, and we don't have that ability right now. And that's why we needed some federal laws to come in and police the state laws that have been taken over. And even if with some minimum federal standards. That's why President Obama, with his magic wand, waved a wand that said we were going to track injured workers and the injuries, because we weren't doing that because President Bush took away the ability to track injured workers. We had it before. He took it away. And then Obama got in and said, yes, let's track injured workers, because if we're tracking the injuries, we know if we are harming people, instead of with the injuries, he just says that all the injuries are going down and nobody's being harmed and everything's working great. If we're not tracking injuries, we don't know what's really truly going on. And so, once again, like I said, Obama gave us that ability back. It was just starting to come into fruition. And then here comes Trump with his pen again, and he took that ability away again. So I'm sorry. We need a minimum federal standard. And if that's the only one minimum federal standard we get out of this fight, there's a lot of other things we need. But if all we get is one minimum federal standard that says we need to track injuries on the job so that we know what's going on and we can hold people to account. If that's the only federal minimum standard that I can get with this fight, then that is one that is good enough, because that way at least we'll be able to track, and the statistics will tell us what's really going on. And neither side wants us to get that. The corporate Democrats don't want it to get it, and Trump and his ALEC friends, biz friends, don't want us to get it either. And that's a minimum federal standard that we as the people need. We don't need it in workers' comp, but I'll just leave it at that. If we could at least get that one minimum federal standard, that would help the injured workers of America. And so any side that is not standing up and fighting for minimum federal standards for injured workers is not fighting in our interest. And 1 in 4 of us may become injured on the job or disabled somehow before we are 65. So this affects 1 in 4 of us in America today. So it's pretty important that we address this issue. And I'm sorry this has gone on so long. It's a very complex issue. But the bottom line is we've got the state using private equity hedge funds and IME mills to try and tell injured workers no, and then it takes us a long time to get through the process. Myself, I had an IME doctor throughout this whole process that the other side has tried to use against me as some like a mental health doctor. And here is the other kicker. She comes from out of state. So the state of Washington is basically paying this IME doctor mill that is located in Washington, but has their doctors come from out of state, so that, you know, the injured workers don't, you know, anyways, we won't go into that. But anyways, they have them come from out of state and they pay her. She comes here 2 days a week. She sees about 10 patients while she's here in that 2 days, and they pay her about her and that company $2,000 pop. So there's $20,000 a month. The state of Washington is paying to one IME doctor from the state of South Carolina to fly in here to intently tell injured workers no on their claims. Now, in the end, the Board of Industrial Appeals eventually does get around and maybe listen to our doctors and give our doctors credence the way the law says it's supposed to be going on. But this can be a 3-year process, and except for some, like I say, it's going on 6, 8, 10, and 12 years for some people trying to fight back against these wrongful, unjustful no's in a system that we were supposed to just be helping people and not having to litigate to start with if we were shown to be harmed or injured on our jobs. How is this there? How are we being there to help the people? So anyways, I'm not out to take away this work comp system. We need a work comp system. We need a robust work comp system to hold the employers to account so we don't have slave labor. That's the whole reason we got work comp to start with, is because the robber barons were making us work barefoot and for slave wages and no safety conditions. So we need the work comp system. We need OSHA. Even a Republican president put that in place. So when you conservatives say, let's abolish it, no, we don't need to abolish it. What we need to do is get the profiteers that are utilizing it and stacking our state laws to utilize so that we can't have access to the system that we are all paying into alongside our employers. And in here in my state, we're unique. There's only like 1 or 2 states that do that, where the employee and the employer both pay for a product from the state that the state mandates that we buy, that the state then uses these for-profit IME doctor no mills to then drag us through the mud if we try to seek help. So in other words, they punish us and make us fear when even the injured workers who do blow the whistle and try to report their harm, they try to make the others fear so they won't report their injuries. This needs to stop. This is harming us all, and it's making our working places less safe. I will stop it at that. This is short, not long enough. Private equity hedge funds are profiting off the misery of injured workers through cost-containment industrial complex. We have the wealth, we have the elite, and we have both parties, the top of both parties, know this war and injured work is going on, and we can't unrig the system or remake America, either group that you are with, if we don't unrig work comp and state med tort laws that ALEC stacked against us. We can't unrig the system if we don't unrig work comp and state med tort laws. We can't remake America if we don't remake the state med tort and work comp laws that ALEC, conservative ALECs, and corporate Dems put together to wage war on us, the people on the bottom, and laborers' rights, and patients' rights, and human rights. And this needs to stop. Thank you, and have a great day.